What is good, everybody? Welcome to another Gold Standard Bleacher Report broadcast. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. She's Michelle Majuk. We are from the 49ers Gold Standard podcast and YouTube channel here with you on a Monday. Michelle, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a perfect 6 degrees and sunny in Houston. Houston's playing in the finals, the championship tonight. I am excited.
That is true, but that's not what we're here to talk about because we're
No.
17 days away from the NFL draft. I can't freaking wait anymore. And something happened to me today, Michelle, that might have changed my entire thinking about the first round. So, full disclosure, I do some hosting for ESPN Radio. And they asked me to participate in their mock draft that they do. Every team makes a pick. They grab somebody that covers every team to make the pick, and then they go through and announce it. They asked me to make the 49ers pick. So I got the list of the picks today, and I'm looking on the thing, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm going to do this. And spoiler alert, I picked Armin Membu. I didn't go defensive line in the first round, and my thinking was, I've got this offensive lineman sitting here that I think could really help the team, and this draft is so full of defensive linemen, I can get others. I'll figure it out, right? I got 10 more picks in the draft. Give me the thing that the draft doesn't have, and I'll rely on the depth of the draft later on after day one, even though I know I'm going to get killed, because if they do that, the Niners are going to get crushed for not taking a defensive lineman.
I think as long as it's offensive lineman or defensive lineman, I don't think the fan base will freak out that bad. But it does have to be one of those two sides and nothing else crazy, right? And I'm actually fine with them going with a lineman if the top defensive tackles are off the board. If you're Mason Graham's off the board and there's no Walter Nolen, and I love my boy Kenneth Grant.
Mm-hmm.
But like if all those guys are going early and fast, then yeah, it doesn't make sense to just reach for one just to reach for one. If you can get one of the top tackles and Will Campbell or Armin Membu, like you said. My issue with going like with a Membu is he's got to play tackle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that help them this year? And that's not the point of drafting. You don't want to just draft to fill a hole for this particular season. And obviously, you'd like to upgrade Colton McKivitz, but how much does that help them this year?
Well, I agree. That was all these things were running through my head as I was doing it. And it's a frustrating question to ask because, number one, the 49ers have put themselves in a position where they literally really need guys out of this draft to help them this season. But also, you have to think bigger picture when it comes to the draft. And so, yeah, I was having a hard time balancing all that out in my head because it's like a defensive lineman clearly would help more this year because Trent Williams is still there. They have Pooney. They're going to compete at left guard, whatever, but like they'll piece it together for this year. Defensive line, there literally aren't any bodies to piece anything together with. So defensive line clearly helps this year. But I don't know. I just couldn't help but think if they've got all these defensive linemen that they can choose from later on, that if you go offensive line early, then everyone else is going to be looking for other stuff, and they're going to be picking from the scartines, as they say in my family, from the leftovers, whereas I've already got one of those top guys at a weaker position.
I will say I think it's way easier to find an interior offensive lineman in the second, third round than it would be to find an elite defensive tackle, which is what they need, or a defensive end if that's where they go. Like they need an elite guy. It can't just be a viable starter. They need to find someone that's a difference maker. You can find guys to plug in the second, third round. They just did it last year with Pooney, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's way easier to find those interior offensive linemen because people don't want to, use priority draft picks on that position. So that's why, again, their biggest need on the offensive line isn't a tackle at the moment. If it was, then I would be more down for that. But with it being a guard, with already having one good guard or maybe center, but there's not a center that's going to go that early anywhere close to that. That's why I lead so much defensive line because, like you said, they have nobody right now. And I'm okay with them moving on from everyone from last year. They stunk. The 49ers as a team had a 55-team PFF run defensive grade, 28th in the NFL. And when you break it down to defensive linemen, the only defensive lineman for the 49ers that had over a 60 run defensive grade was Nick Bosa at 80, which was good. And then the starting defensive tackles and Malik Collins and Jordan Elliott each had a sub 55 PFF run defensive grade. And also like the sacks were down, the tackles for loss had 67 as a team, third fewest in the NFL behind only the Panthers and the Patriots. Like,
Oof.
I'm fine with them moving on from what they did last year. Like, I'm fine with them cleaning house, just keeping Nick Bosa and starting over. The issue is they haven't started over yet, right? They haven't started that process. They haven't added anybody. So we desperately need them to do it in the draft. And I get it's deep, but it's not just one player they need. They need to get that elite guy in the first round and also keep adding as we go along the other rounds.
Yeah, they've demoed the kitchen, but they haven't started actually replacing the things that they've destroyed. The new countertops are not in. You still need a dishwasher. You still need a sink, all that stuff. For what it's worth, Niners are heavily invested in the defensive line. They're having a couple of defensive linemen in for top 30 visits. Mychal Williams, Walter Nolen, obviously, who everybody is high on. Also, Omar Norman Lott, a defensive tackle who spent some time at Arizona State at one point, which is a little interesting with the Niners because they were coached by Herm Edwards at the time. John Lynch has a great relationship with Herm Edwards. He told him to take Brandon Ayuk. He told him to take Ricky Pearsall. So, just keep your eye on that. But as Rob Lauder points out on Twitter, the majority of the top 30 visits so far have gone to the defensive front. So I'm not saying the Niners are going to go away from D-line in the first round. I'm just saying it popped into my head once I started doing this ESPN radio mock draft. And I did notice, Michelle, that a lot of the recent mocks have the Niners going corner in round one, which I'm like really surprised at because you have Diamador Lenore, who you just signed to a new contract. You have Renardo Green, who you took in the second round last year, who looks solid, and you've got him on a rookie deal for 3 more years. Like, is it that big of a need that you got to go round one with corner? That really shocks me, but a lot of mocks, including the Athletics that came out today, has them going with a corner.
Yeah, I mean, that would be John Lynch has not used a top 60 pick on a defensive back at all throughout his time as a GM for the 49ers. And the 49ers haven't selected a corner since when? Do you know? A little trivia.
Oh, in the first round?
Yeah.
Mike Rumpf. Is it Mike Rumpf?
It is.
Oh, my God. That was like, what year was that?
Do you know?
It was early 2000s, wasn't it?
2002.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Wow, you got it right.
I remember the pick. I think he came out of Miami, and I remember like, all right, we got a corner, and I'm stunned that it has literally been that long. It has been 23 years. That's insane.
It is, but I don't think this is the time to do that because, like you said, they have a couple pieces there. You got to let Renardo Green grow and see what he can be. Right? I don't think they need to use a first round pick on that. I do think there's still some viable free agents out there you can add if you just need to add more bodies. And then you could take a guy in the, maybe that's when you take a second or third round pick on a corner, but that shouldn't be your first round pick this year.
No, isn't Asante Samuel Jr. still out there as a free agent? Like, I would much rather than, go O-line, go D-line. Maybe you sign him after the draft, possibly. I would not go there. But it's just weird, like, I mean, these things kind of ebb and flow, and after you've done like your 80th mock draft, I guess you want to pick someone new, and maybe that's all it is. But I just weird that I'm seeing people start to pick defensive backs for the Niners, and I'm like, I don't know if. Here's the thing. For me, there are 3 positions that I feel like if you think there's a stud, you got to go get. Pass rusher is one, quarterback is another, offensive tackle is a third. Other than that, maybe corner. Maybe stud star corner, like lockdown guy, maybe. But I don't know. That's debatable for me. So if it's not one of those top 3 positions, I'm not, breaking my neck to go get a corner in round one.
Yeah, and there's still, like I said, veterans. I just grabbed up the list here, and like you said, Asante Samuel's still out there. You got Mike Hilton, which he's a really good slot corner, and that's kind of would be great for the 49ers.
Yep.
There's Stephon Gilmore, who's, getting older, but he keeps just getting it done, right? Rasul Douglas, down year last year, but overall he's had a good career. Like, there are guys out there that they can grab on the cheap to add to their corner room. It's not that big of a need. They need to push that in the first round. Now, if they love a guy like Jahdae Barron from Texas, then maybe they do. They say maybe they think he's going to be elite. And if you can add an elite guy to the room with Diamador Lenore, and if Renardo Green, continues to grow, then maybe that can be your strength of the defense instead of the defensive line. But it's going to be hard on that coverage group if the defensive line can never get to the quarterback.
Well, so then this is the question, right? Let's just assume for the sake of argument that anybody the Niners draft is going to be a good player. Because if they're going to stink, then who cares? The conversation is pointless. But
Yeah.
let's assume that whoever they take is going to be good. If you are Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch for the next 4 years, would you rather have a really good offensive lineman, a really good pass rusher, a really good corner?
When you say it like that,
I know
I feel like I would go corner.
you would. Okay, why?
I don't know. Maybe that's stupid because now I'm thinking like really, really good defensive tackles out there, right? How much of a difference do they make? They have to basically be Aaron Donald or Chris Jones, right? And yeah, we can say they can be a good player, but you know how hard it is to hit on Aaron Donald or Chris Jones
Right.
for them to be a difference maker in both the run game and as an insane pass rusher.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if you can hit on so let's say you can hit on an Aaron Donald or Chris Jones, or you can hit on a Sauce Gardner or Patrick Surtain or something like that. Or you
Okay.
can hit on who's Rashawn Slater or Tristan Wirfs, one of these young guys. In that case, I actually do think I take the Chris Jones, Aaron Donald, like the defensive tackle.
I definitely don't take the offensive lineman. And here's why. Years ago, the Cleveland Browns selected Joe Thomas at the top of the draft. I don't know if it was number 1. I think it was number 1 or number 2, something like that. Top 5 pick. Joe Thomas was as good as you could possibly be as a left tackle. He literally went 10,000 straight plays without missing a snap. He's in the Hall of Fame. Never had any trouble off the field. Never had a contract dispute. Like, you can't do a better job with that pick than the Browns did with Joe Thomas. And they absolutely stunk during his entire career. Like, they were a tire fire. It didn't help them at all. And obviously, if everybody else stinks, no one pick is going to do that. But I do think that the odds, if I'm getting that level of player, I think they could have a greater impact at defensive line, defensive tackle, or at corner, like you said. So I definitely wouldn't pick the offensive lineman.
Yeah, and now that like if we're talking about the elite of the elites, I'm going defensive tackle, right, or defensive line, edge, or defensive tackle. But if we're talking just like really really good player, then I think I'd go corner.
I mean, it would be a different defensive look for the Niners. Because the strength of their defense was always built around the pass rushers on the D line. But you don't have to do it that way. You can do it any different kind of way. If you have a lockdown secondary, if you did have, Will Johnson or whoever, like pick the rookie corner you want to throw in there with Lenore, with Green, with Mustafa. I don't know what the other safety, whoever you want to make it. But if their secondary is locked down, they can build their defense that way. It's not out of the question. And instead of trying to force a square peg in a round hole by saying we got to go defensive line, if you think the guy at corner is that much better, maybe you try and build it up that way and have a little faith in Robert Saleh that he could sort of, MacGyver this thing.
And one thing's for sure, teams that force their pick based on just needs, that's normally a disaster, right?
Yes.
Those are normally really bad GMs. Those are guys that do not last long because their draft picks end up being bad. So definitely the way to go is best player available. Now, that would be very hard for me to do. And it's very hard for us fans to sit here and want that, right? Because we're like, oh, that's not what they need, though. They need this one position. But that is really not the way to draft. It is best player available. So if they're sitting there and all the, a couple of the top defensive tackles went off the board, the top edge rushers, Will Campbell's off the board, maybe, Membu is also off the board, and they say, by far the best player on the board right now is corner, right? If they love Jahdae Barron, who keeps getting mocked to them.
Yep.
Then that's the guy they should take.
Let me ask you this question. I'm just throwing hypotheticals at you all day today. This is what I've decided we're going to do on the show. Let's say you think Mason Graham is that guy, right? Like Aaron Donald, Chris Jones type of impact guy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you trade, a lot of picks? The Niners have 11 picks. They have more picks than anybody else in the draft, obviously, plus a full complement in 2026 and beyond and all that. Do you move heaven and earth to get Mason Graham if you think he's that guy? Or do you stay at 11 and get a good player, solid NFL type player at 11, but you also get to keep all the extra stuff that it would take to go up and get a Mason Graham?
I mean, you have to be so confident that he's just beyond elite, right? Because it's like I said, even if you really, really like a guy, there's still a great chance he's not going to end up elite. So you have to be massively confident. And I do also think he's going to have to fall a bit, right? And Daniel Jeremiah's draft, Mason Graham's going at number 8 to Carolina. I don't think it would cost that much to move up from 11 to 8. If they only had to give up a third round pick, right? They're really bad at third round picks. I'm open to it. I would not want to have to give, like, I wouldn't want to move up too much where they have to give up a second rounder. They have too many needs, too many positions to fill to give up a second round pick. But once you get past that and it only costs a third to move up, then I'm much more open to it.
That is so tempting. I wonder if it gets to that point. If they're like, hey, we weren't planning on Mason Graham, but all of a sudden it's number 8, and you're like, it's 3 spots. They have 2 third-round picks. They could give up both of those third-round picks and a pick swap in round 1. I think I would support that, honestly, because he's the guy, when all the mocks come out, he's the one guy where I'm like, where's he going? Where's he? Because at first it was like maybe he could drop to the Niners at 11, but I feel like recently he's been going top 5. He's not really fallen below, frequently anyway, top 5, which I don't think that they would. I think that would be too much for them to move up. But at 8, like you said, that is a different conversation. It's a different argument. I would support them moving up to 8 to get Mason Graham.
What's really nice is that the teams in the top 10, there's a bunch of them that need a quarterback. So we really want the 2 to at least go, right? Abdul Carter is going to be gone. Travis Hunter. What's also nice is a running back is going to go in the top 10, free pick for the 49ers that you don't have to worry about. Ashton Jeanty is going to be gone there, and then it comes down to, do teams take a Jalen Walker edge or go for the top defensive tackle or go for a top offensive tackle? That's where it's all going to come down to with Mason Graham, with how far he falls. But I don't really see it. The Jaguars might be the scariest team to be up on the board at number 5.
Mm-hmm.
After that, I don't think the Raiders are going to consider him. I don't think the Jets would. And then again, then it's at 8, and that would be your next biggest concern.
Do you really think Genty's going to go in the top 10?
Yeah, I really do.
Ooh. See, this is what I need. Jeanty to go in the top 10. I need Jackson Dart to go in. That would be huge for the 49ers. If for some reason, okay, Cam Ward's going to be gone. If Shedeur Sanders gets picked, let's say Shedeur Sanders goes to the Giants at 3, right? Then does some team freak out and they're like, oh my God, the 2 quarterbacks are gone. Jackson Dart is the only guy left that we really think is, a viable guy that could be the man for our team. Does somebody freak out and take Jackson Dart? Because if you get 3 quarterbacks in the top 10, you get Jeanty in the top 10. That's 40% of those picks that are gone that really don't affect the 49ers too much. They don't affect the pool of guys that you're hoping falls to you. You would still have both tackles on the board at that point. Oh, and you know what? You need Tyler Warren to go too. That would be huge, because then that's half of the top 10 gone. Then
you have Travis Hunter is going to be gone for sure, which
yes,
you don't need.
Travis
Hunter, and there's a good chance Tataroa McMillan will go. Mm-hmm.
That's true.
So, there's chances here that these guys will fall for sure. It just depends on how this board goes. But yeah, they're going to have an option here at 10 or at 11. Someone is going to be elite at that, like an elite prospect. We don't know if they're going to be elite in the NFL. They're going to have a chance to take an elite prospect at one of these positions of need when they're sitting there at 11.
It's going to be so much fun on draft. I cannot wait. I'm going to be literally sitting there other than the first pick, because I think we're all pretty much assured it's going to be Cam Ward. But other than that, I'm going to be like, oh God, who is it? Please. I'm going to be freaking out after every single pick. And we're going to be live on the 49ers Gold Standard Podcast Network and YouTube channel the whole first round, because who the hell knows what the 49ers are going to do. So I just decided we're going to be live the whole damn time. So you could have us up. We'll be reacting. We'll be freaking out about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Michelle's going to join us for part of it. Well, all the other hosts that we have on the network are going to hop in for a little while. So definitely want to go and check that out. One thing before we go, Michelle, that I'm super excited about, that they just changed the rules about too, because it wasn't always this way, is Hard Knocks. Normally there were all these rules about Hard Knocks to where basically the 49ers could not be forced to do it. And to be clear, the only way the 49ers will ever end up on Hard Knocks is if they are forced to do it, because Kyle Shanahan hates the whole idea of it. He's on record as saying he hates the whole idea of it. But now the rules are different. The only teams that cannot be forced to do Hard Knocks now are teams with a first-year head coach. That ain't the Niners. teams that were featured in the in-season edition of Hard Knocks, that wasn't the Niners, and teams that were on Hard Knocks in the last 8 years. Well, that ain't the Niners because this is year 9 of Kyle Shanahan, and he has never done it before. How excited and interesting would 49ers be on Hard Knocks?
See, that's why I don't think they're going to get picked, though. I would love to see them. It would be a great time. It'd be fun. I don't think they have enough interesting players right now
What?
to do it.
Oh, I completely disagree. I think it would be fascinating. First off, how much of Brandon Ayuk do they even show, right? Because let's be clear, the teams have the final say over what gets shown and what doesn't get shown. Clearly, they've been dumping on Brandon Ayuk this entire offseason. He stinks. His contract is no good. We regret it. We paid him too much, blah, blah, blah. How much Ayuk do they show? What's his interaction like with Kyle Shanahan, with the other players? Is there any animosity there? I would be fascinated every time Brandon Ayuk is on the screen. I want to see what Kyle Shanahan is like. Is he as big as a jerk as it seems like he can be some of the time? How does he interact with the players and all that stuff? Plus, we were just spent all this time talking about the rookies, Michelle. They're the ones that are probably going to be featured the most because they're sort of at the bottom of the totem pole. And we're going to find out there could be 11 rookies on this thing.
I would love to see it. And I think there is so much interesting things for us fans to see. They're not worried about 49ers fans, though, right? They know whoever fan base that they select is going to watch. They're worried about the rest of the fan bases. Will they want to watch? And is like right now, is everyone really that excited about the 49ers? I don't think so. Like, I don't see them not taking a team with one of these elite quarterbacks now that they have a chance. Like, the Chiefs are on this list of available teams that can be picked. How are they not going to pick Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce in their last maybe year that they get together and get that connection, get to see Andy Reid and what he does? Like, that would be so entertaining for everybody to get to see that. The Chiefs have never been eligible, probably. I don't know when, not for a really long time. So like, how are they going to pick the 49ers over a team like the Chiefs?
That's fair. Mahomes was just on that quarterback show. So maybe, I don't know, does that affect the decision? I think everything you said is totally valid. I think the Eagles would be a fine choice for sure. Obviously, defending.
The Ravens are on there with Lamar and Derrick
The Ravens,
Henry.
yeah, they've been on Hard Knocks a couple of times, though. They've done the Ravens thing. See, I think it's more interesting if you force someone to do it that doesn't want to do it. Because if they want to do it, I don't know.
Does anyone want to do it? I feel like no team wants to do it.
I think Jerry Jones would like to do it just because he has never met a camera he didn't like.
Well, Dallas isn't on the list. They can't do it.
They can't do it?
I don't know. They're not.
Oh, they have a new coach, huh?
Yeah,
they have Brian Schottenheimer. So they could still do it. They just can't be forced to do it. But maybe if Jerry wants to, that'd be a different thing. But yeah, I don't know. I could see the Niners doing it. I don't want to see the Rams do it. I've seen enough of Sean McVay. The Dolphins might be interesting with Mike McDaniel, but I don't know if they have enough interesting players. Like the Niners have players people know: Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner. You know, they've got names that people are familiar with. Plus, what if Brock Purdy doesn't have a contract? How interesting would that be?
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be fun to watch. That's for sure. That'd be so irritating. I'm down for it. I think it'd be great. We'll see if they're, if this is who they choose. I just cannot envision that happening. But the one thing I'd be most interested in is seeing Kyle Shanahan and how he deals with his players and how he talks to them and how he motivates them. Mm-hmm. I would be all focused, all eyes on Kyle Shanahan and how he acts.
And Robert Saleh too, because a lot of the, from what I can gather, Kyle doesn't really do a lot of like motivational type stuff, but Saleh does. And Saleh did when he was there the first time. All gas, no brakes, his little slogan. That's Robert Saleh. Kyle doesn't come up with those. He doesn't come up with those. It's just, he doesn't think it's important. He doesn't think it matters. I would love to see that interaction, the interaction between Kyle and Robert Saleh, which a lot of people were surprised that Saleh agreed to go back and work with Kyle Shanahan because they had some battles back in the day. I think just sit me down with somebody from HBO. I'll sell them on it. Don't worry.
You're not worried about the distraction?
This team creates its own distractions. What the hell's one more? I mean, at this point, they're crapping on their best wide receiver. They got a quarterback that might not have a contract that's going to be playing on the rookie deal, the most discounted quarterback deal in the entire league. Kyle Shanahan may or may not be on the hot seat. We don't really know. I mean, what's one more thing you want to put onto the pile of stuff that's riding on this season?
What's crazy is if they didn't change the rules, the 49ers still would have been eligible, right? And they probably would have had a much better shot of getting picked.
I don't remember the old rules.
I think it was just like you didn't make the playoffs before, or was it the last couple seasons? I think they would have still been eligible this year because of how bad they were. So like they wouldn't have had the competition of the other big teams and the big, big name quarterbacks. So the change actually probably hurt them, their chances.
Put them on the damn show. Do it, HBO. Do the right thing. Anyway, I'm going to keep campaigning for it until they announce it. But that's just my personal campaign, I guess you could say. But anyway, that's going to do it for this edition of the show. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Please like and subscribe to the 49ers Gold Standard YouTube channel. You can get the podcast everywhere you get your audio podcast. Michelle is on X, at Ball Blast. I am on all the socials, at Stats on Fire. We are here for you on the Bleacher Report app every Monday and Wednesday. We're doing the show a little early this week. Normally, we're here at 6 p.m. Pacific time. We had some scheduling things, so we bumped it up this week. But normally, that's when we'll be here for you. We'll be back on Wednesday, counting down to the NFL draft. Michelle, 17 days today. I can't wait.
It is so close, and we have so much to talk about, and we're going to get into it all.
Enjoy the rest of your Monday, everybody.
Bye, y'all.